Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video by yours truly. Apparently, Developer Radio 3.0 has some banger news contained in here that is exemplary of devs listening, particularly to all of the discontent that I had with HSR 3.0. That's what I've been seeing on Twitter. Anyways, let's go ahead and get straight into it without further ado. Following the launch of version 3.0, the Express crew has received an array of feedback from Trailblazers during their exploration of New World. Some of this feedback concerns issues with Trailblazers' experience with the story and exploration. We'll be making adjustments and optimizations to address these issues with the aim of bringing Trailblazers a smoother journey. Okay. Trailblaze mission story issue. We received feedback from Trailblazers that the Amphorius main story contains excessive lore exposition and too much reading, resulting in feelings of fatigue and tedium. So it's not that there's excessive lore exposition. In fact, to the contrary, I think the lore exposition wasn't excessive. I thought it was significant to the world building of Amphorius so that we can understand what Amphorius is. If you've watched my reviews, if you've listened to all of my discontents, my problem wasn't necessarily the dialogue. It was the presentation as they were stating the dialogue. Amphorius has a complex design, and during development, we wanted to ensure that the info supporting it was as complete as possible. However, the result has presently failed to meet Trailblazers' expectations. Yeah, so first of all, this is incredible. This is literally evidence, tangible, from the devs that they have heard everyone. There's so much I have going in my brain right now. The power of influence is showing itself in exemplary fashion right now. First of all, we'll get into that in a bit, but I want to make sure I'm explicit here. Excessive lore exposition, I think they did a phenomenal job setting up the world building of Amphorius. Too much reading is quite subjective, I would say. Depending on the person, you might be fine with it, somebody else might not be fine with it. But the presentation, that is absolutely, objectively, piss poor presentation. It just is. There's many benchmarks out there to prove how it's piss poor presentation. And that is where I took issue with mainly. In response to this feedback, we'll address the root of the issue by reducing design-related explanations in the story. In upcoming versions, Trailblazers will have the option of skipping this content so that they may experience the main story in a more relaxed manner. I'm gonna read that one more time. In upcoming versions, Trailblazers will have the option of skipping this content so that they may experience the main story in a more relaxed manner. There's no shot they're actually adding a skip button in here, right? I mean, I don't know how else to read that. Do they have an example? Oh, okay. Pre-adjustment, post-adjustment. Okay, hold up. Let's continue reading. Taking version 3.0 as an example, the progress from the beginning of the story to Okima contains a lot of dialogue with info on the end times, Titans, Chrysos errors, and miracles. Following adjustments, Trailblazers will be able to choose whether to talk to relevant characters to obtain this information. Pre-adjustment, okay. Post-adjustment, option of let's rest together and get ready for the journey to the Holy City versus before setting out, I want to learn more about Amphorius. So they're not adding a skip button. They're adding an option for you to skip certain aspects of the story that pertain to world building. Okay, first of all, it is an improvement, but it's not the improvement. The improvement is to just add a skip button for people who just don't give a fuck about the story, period. This is, I guess, a step in the right direction, but honestly, I'm not really crazy about this part, and I'll explain why here. What I want you to do is just make the presentation of the story better. I think your dialogue is good. I think your world building is good, but your presentation is a 1 out of 10. This right here doesn't fix your presentation. It doesn't even it doesn't even fully fix people who just don't care about the story. It just gives you a bit less playtime, I guess, on the data sheets and the statistics of how much people are playing our game HSR. It just lessens that just by a little bit. But I think a lot of people who enjoy your story want to read the dialogue and the world building of Amphorius. They want to see that. They don't want to skip it. They want to see it, but they want to have a better viewing experience. And so while I admit that this is an improvement, for the people who don't want to skip, still want to see, this doesn't really solve anything. I assure you, a lot of the story enjoyers still want to read it. They just want to have a better viewing experience. That's my thoughts on that anyways. Okay, to give another example, when facing Oryx's trial in the Abyss of Fate, Trailblazers must try 3 different methods: placing the flaming lance and bat, standing on top, and attacking the scales weighing pan. To complete the Titan's test, following adjustments, these 3 attempts will become optional, thereby greatly simplifying progress and improving the flow of story. Okay, so they're talking about that part where you end up goddamn putting a camera on the scales, taking a picture, and then the power of friendship is the reason why you were able to get through the scales of justice. Yeah, that part was ridiculous because it was actually that was one of those scenarios where the puzzle kind of got in the way of the flow of the story, and it kind of like just it takes you out of the immersiveness of this story that you're consuming, because you're sitting here doing all these little puzzle options just so you can do this dumbass power of friendship thing at the end. Okay, so I have the example of it. Placing flame lance and the baseball bat on it. Yeah, so you would go through these options and then eventually you'd run into an option where you put the camera on there. And it's just a time consuming thing. It's just tedious. It's like, bro, can we get on with this? At the same time, so what did they say they were going to do actually? At the same time, we will also look to arrange and present missions in a more reasonable manner. Okay, that's not it either. Okay, so I guess they're saying there's an I'm out of ideas option now. So it seems this is a retroactive fix for people who want to go through the story but just couldn't be bothered with spending time doing it. So they're doing things retroactively. I will give credit to this. This is actually crazy because that means they're going to be doing this retroactively while prepping for 3.1, 3.2, so on and so forth. So it's good for people who haven't experienced 3.0 yet, but I'll be honest, it doesn't necessarily, it's not game changing. It's really not. I mean, but it's like, how do I compliment this when the compliment or like the change isn't necessarily a 10 out of 10 change, but more so like a 2 out of 10 change. You know what I mean? I guess for what it's worth, it's something. At the same time, we will also look to arrange and present missions in a more reasonable manner and reduce tedious narrative experiences like the black screen with white text. Oh, wow. Now that's funny. That's actually pretty funny. Okay, man. I'm going to be honest. All of the things that are kind of being tackled here were 100% in all of my discontent. I mean, I made 2 different story reviews. I made a first impressions where I talk with Jinazat. I think that's like 60,000 views. And then I made another one where I review the entirety of the story and I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. And I definitely went over all of this stuff. This is actually quite crazy because I feel like I injected this damn near. I feel like I'm the only motherfucker that's being praised. I do think I had the largest degree of influence. And I'll explain that why at the end. I do. And that's not like a self-glaze or a narcissistic point of view. I was quite literally the first person to go off on all of this stuff in a constructive way too. Not in a like vitriol way. I explained everything with much coherence and substance, and I provided tangible evidence as I was stating those claims with my opinions, and the sentiment was shared en masse abroad. Okay, mission puzzle solving issue. Another thing I pointed out in my story review. Literally, there's a timestamp of me talking about this. The Emphoria's main story contains some unique stage gameplay, and our aim was for Trailblazers to experience the rules and designs of the world both through the content of the story and through this gameplay. And you know what's funny? I get that. I absolutely understand that. Sometimes another method of storytelling is going through these puzzles in a gameplay fashion while also setting up the world building. In a way, you're basically learning the elements and the beauty of the world through the puzzles. I 100% understand what they're saying here, but it was insanely excessive to a mind-boggling and waning degree. However, in practice, we should have achieved a better balance, yes, between puzzle solving and story. Yes, with puzzles also containing too many steps. This too often resulted in puzzle solving interrupting the flow, taking you out of the immersiveness of the story consumption of the story and detracting from the experience. This was quite literally, this was quite literally, where are we at here? Story quality, puzzles killed me. This was, I literally covered this perfectly well right here in this tidbit in my story review. So, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It's looking like they listen to me, or my influence reached the community at large, and then it echoed to the developers. Which, to be honest, that's generally what happens. I don't have enough of the power for the devs to directly listen to me. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But I know for a fact my influence and my way of presenting my opinions and my discontent and sentiments absolutely influenced the community at large, and that reached the developers. That's what I would argue. This too often resulted in puzzle solving interrupting the flow. Okay, so to tackle this issue, we'll optimize the main story puzzle solving designs and provide simpler and more direct solutions for some puzzles. It's not so much, again, I want to be careful here. Your puzzles were great, in my opinion. I just thought they should have been much like the TVs and ZZZ, put them in a different part, like a optional puzzle explorative area after finishing the story. It's like, okay, now we're done with the story. Now let's go back and go to this area where all the puzzles are and stuff and solve all that stuff. And then we get some resources and, things we could utilize that to like make wishes or build up characters and stuff. That is, I would say 70% of the puzzles should have been put in an explorative feature after finishing the story. That was my thing. I don't think you need to make them easier or any of that. Please. Last thing I want is just brain dead stuff. It was just too many of them. That's the problem. Taking version 3.0 as an example, in the blood-bathed battlefront, Castrum Crimno's soul forging zone. Okay. I can't put a picture of it. Oh, okay, I see. Put them right here. Trailblazers must complete the drawn-out task of restoring 4 soul forging statues. Oh my God. This was one of the most mind-waning puzzles in the story experience, by far, hands down. To piece together Nicodor's divinity, this is like right before you fight the god. Trailblazers will be able to choose to directly talk with Nace and complete the mission objective in a more Crimnoan fashion. Yeah, that's awesome. So you don't even have to deal with none of that. Bro, there was so much time dedicated to that. It was insane. Similarly, before and you would get to that part before a whole nother bundle of puzzles, an abundance of puzzles. It was like puzzle. Then you finally get to the story where you meet this guy, and it's like, oh wait, before we actually get into the thick of it, more puzzle. It was insane, man. Similarly, before reaching this, and you know what's crazy? I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. So many people who were trying to say like story wasn't that bad or anything and all this and overhate, they didn't even get to this part yet. Probably still haven't got to this part yet. And they were trying to give an opinion. It's like, boy, please. Simmer down there, little pup. Similarly, before reaching the soul forging zone, Trailblazers must complete a series of drawn out puzzles to proceed to the final battle. The following adjustments in some of the puzzle solving rooms. Okay, I just talked about this. Trailblazers will be able to choose to progress the story in a more Crimnoan fashion. All right, cool. So it seems like you're just going to be able to straight up get into the thick of it and engaging in battle. Yeah. At the same time, we'll optimize the lengthy and complex map pathing for the main storyline's exploration. The overly concentrated enemy placements in certain areas will be reduced to prevent enemies from frequently interrupting map exploration and puzzle solving. This aims to enhance Trailblazers' experience throughout the main story. Yeah, so essentially what it is... Oh, okay, this is nice. They're eliminating all of the battles of the enemies because, again, this is one of those elements of a turn-based game where you want to strike a balance. Back in the day, you just had to deal with it, right? Where you had the random RNG spawn battles. All of my turn-based veterans know what I'm talking about. It was fucking annoying. And then, thankfully, as times rolled by in 2020 and even not even 2020, like 2015, 2010, they started remastering these games, and you were able to completely turn off the RNG running into battle experience. You can turn that shit off, right? Now you just go through it. Too much enemies, and you keep going into these battles that aren't even challenging. It's just a waste of time. It deconnects you from story consumption. You almost forget entirely what you're doing because of you constantly running into that. And then you mix that in with puzzles. It's like once you connect back into the dialogue, you're like, what was even happening? What did I even do? And so, yeah, that's huge. This is cool. But I will say all of it seems to be all retroactive induced, but it kind of like foreshadows that they're also going to be doing this going forward too. And so that's good. All right, so what are we talking about here? To reduce any negative experience caused by the above issues and make sure the overall quality meets everyone's expectations. Okay, here we go. We're continuing to polish and fine-tune upcoming versions of the game. Regarding existing content for version 3.0, we will proceed with the aforementioned adjustments. Okay, I just said that. We anticipate these adjustments will take effect from version 3.2. Okay. Yeah. Pretty much what I just said. So they're saying they're fixing it retroactively, but these same exact adjustments will also, you can expect a similar fashion going forward too, proactively. Okay. Amphorius is a year-long journey, and these story and puzzle-solving optimizations are just the beginning. This must be the part that I got spoiled for on Twitter. The Express crew will continue to optimize content. We're excited to bring everyone bigger and better journey experiences. To name some examples, we'll be adding richer combat gameplay and challenge goals to the game. What do they mean by that? Richer combat gameplay sounds like an improvement upon what we've already been experiencing, which we haven't seen that in quite some time. In addition, issues close to Trailblazing Heart, including difficulty deploying older characters on the battlefield and the strengthening of these older characters, are already on the schedule. Stay tuned for future content updates, Trailblazers. Okay, this is what I got spoiled for on Twitter. Yeah, I saw the everyone talking about how older characters. This is like this is a shit, like it's going crazy on Twitter right now with this. Everyone's talking about, oh, older characters getting buffered. This sounds good, but I need to see what they have in store here before I see. I don't fall for this shit. Words sound good, but where are the action? I need to see the action. Once we see the action, then we can make give an actual opinion on it, on what they did and the validity of it. But as of now, it sounds good, but is it actually going to be good? That's what we need to brace ourselves for. Trailblazer feedback has always been extremely important to the Express crew. Thank you for your ongoing support. See you again on the next Developer Radio update. So overall, now it's time for me to discuss my thoughts here. First off, I don't know how I feel about them buffing older characters yet until I see it. We aren't given any credit here until we see what actually occurs. Second of all, what this tells me is money must have went down. Seems like them pockets listened. You know, that's I think a lot of people, because what I saw, and you know what? Let's go back to this. What I saw from my story review was this. Guys, this story review, I grilled in a constructive manner. I actually wasn't vitriol at all. It was very constructive. I had a lot of substance and coherence, as well as tangible evidence to the discontent that I had. And it's riddled in this story review. This was insane. The amount of people in the HSR space that just view criticism as negative, especially in the Hoyosphere, it is staggering. It is uncanny when you look at everywhere else. And so when I saw that everyone, 1,200 comments and counting, almost unanimously agreed with how shit that experience was, that was a message to me on, first of all, I guess I did a great job explaining all this stuff with my opinion. But second of all, oh wow, wait, this might be a majority sentiment, not a minority sentiment. This is huge, you know? Another example of this is not only did I make that video, right, given a 5.5 out of 10. This is the other thing too. A lot of people will see a thumbnail and immediately thumb a video down before even giving the video a fair shake. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10 in the thumbnail, less telling, more showing, and it still got majority like to dislike ratio. And this is not like a 25K video. This is 60,000 on a fucking story review, right? It's not just any video. This is a story review. That means it's very concentrated and you're attracting a particular audience that has a expectation on what you're going to stay in that video. So it's a powerful influence and it's going to echo throughout in agreement and unison, which is huge. But then I did it again, day one of the HSR 3.0 experience. I was the first creator to drop a HSR first impressions of 3.0 and what I thought of it. If we go over to Twitter, this, my first impressions of Honkai Star Rail 3.0. If we go over to Twitter, I put this out, just a GIF of my frustrations of how I felt after 6 hours of playing it. While shortly after that, that's 71,000 views, on that, just a GIF. And then I put this out where I discussed with Genazad because he wanted to talk to me about what my thoughts were about this whole ordeal and how I was feeling. Again, 6 hours after playing. And we had an hour discussion about why I didn't like HSR 3.0 storytelling for the first 6 hours. And then we explained in a back and forth fashion about what enables somebody to be discontent and what enables somebody to enjoy a story and why we like video gaming. It was a very wholesome conversation that enabled the community to understand why people should have the right to be like upset with their experience with a video game or satisfied with their experience with a video game. Once again though, frame one, before anybody else, majority okay with it. 1,247 comments, majority agreed with it. And so this was huge to me. This told me like, okay, I am at least doing my part as a content creator and not being vitriol and just being genuine with my feelings and sentiments to ensure that the whole community is either on the same page, they understand how I arrived at those sentiments, or more importantly, I help them kind of acknowledge or bring to the surface their own discontent that they were struggling to put into words. And then the final thing was the HSR devs just got exposed, where I show a team of like 5 people, the literal meme of small indie company doing a better job with their storytelling and expressiveness of the characters and the presentation of what they're saying than a $1 billion company. In total, that's 58K, 60K, and 74K, pretty much 200,000 views of straight up calling out the story of HSR 3.0. I would argue that I was a massive catalyst for the developer 3.0 radio. I know that sounds insane, but it's not so much me. It's that I did a good job communicating to the community the problems in a very objective, constructive, and coherent fashion. And what that did was it influenced the community to then share and echo that sentiment en masse to then reach the developers. It's not that I actually have that power myself. I don't. I listen, brother. I ain't nothing but a bag of potato chips. As I said, I ain't shit, bro. But when you're able, not me, anybody, when you're able to share an opinion that's not vitriol, and you're able to prove that opinion with as much coherent substance and tangible evidence as possible, that opinion will outweigh all other opinions, shit opinions included. And this is most importantly what I want you guys to understand. This is why you don't have to, as a content creator, you don't have to go to another content creator's opinion and be combative with it. It's unnecessary. The shit opinion will expose itself by smart opinions basically showing themselves. Does that make sense? There were so many content creators, a number of them, I'm gonna be honest with you, that I was absolutely disappointed in what they said on HSR 3.0. I was like, oh God, bro, that opinion ain't worth the fucking pot to piss in. But I didn't need to go over to their opinions and say, oh, mine's is the better opinion. Just be intelligent with your own opinion. And what's gonna happen is the community's going to basically, they're gonna be the judge of it. And they're gonna go, oh wow, that, you know what? That guy proved a lot more with that opinion than this guy did. And what's going to happen is it's going to drown out all the other ones. And now we have the full representation of the community at large there. And I think that's a massive W, and that's healthy for the space. Anyways, those are all my thoughts. I do think that developer note, to come back down to the developer note, I don't think they tackled the presentation problem. In fact, it's a bit disappointing. But at least it's a step in the right direction. At least we know that they acknowledged what the discontent was from the community and that they are listening and are making an effort towards the right direction. However, I believe you should remain optimistically cautious, and see what happens, because they didn't really address that they were going to present the story better. In fact, I would say the amount of effort that was expressed in that developer note was maybe about a 3 out of 10. because they didn't say we're going to provide more cutscenes or we're going to increase how the characters express themselves on their faces. We're going to provide more angles. We're going to improve. No, they didn't state any of that. And so until they show that, I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic. That's going to wrap up my video. Thanks for watching. Comment down below. Let me know you guys' thoughts. Peace, love, and happiness. I'll catch you on the flip side.